Good evening, fantasy managers. This is Devo 1099 with Fantasy Football Backers. We've got Game Week 32 coming right at you. It's going to be a good one. Premier League is starting to get a little more interesting. The league itself is locked up. I think Chelsea is pretty safely ahead at this point, and the type of football they play, they're just not going to. They're not going to get themselves in much trouble. So unfortunately, that's locked up. And the top four is probably locked up too. So relegation is going to be interesting, and the fight for Europe with some deserving teams with Liverpool, Tottenham, and Southampton. They're all a little bit inconsistent, but they've played well this year, and every week is still exciting. So. And honestly, if it's not, how about some daily fantasy football to make up for it? So we're going to start a keeper. We're playing on Mondogoal again. The 30,000-pound qualifier is still in effect. Make sure you get a ticket for that because it's going to be an exceptionally fun time in the last match week of the year. We're going to start a keeper. There are two expensive keepers that we're looking at. Thibaut Courtois with Chelsea, playing on the road at QPR, and Simon Mignolet for Liverpool, playing at Anfield against Newcastle. They're at $9 million for Mignolet and $8.8 million for Courtois. Both have good chances at clean sheets. The problem with Liverpool and the problem with Mignolet for me is they're going to be missing Skirtle due to his ban, but they're also going to be missing Sacco now. So he was injured in an FA Cup play this week. So they're a little bit undermanned. Newcastle doesn't have Cisse and can't score without him. So either of those plays are solid. If you played an expensive keeper last week, you probably made out quite well because Boaz Myhill just imploded for West Brom and took a lot of fantasy teams down with him. My favorite pick this week, though, is Kelvin Davis from Southampton. He comes in at a very reasonable $6.4 million. He's got Hull City at St. Mary's. He hasn't been playing particularly well. Southampton as a whole has been in a bit of a down patch. But I like Davis this week. I don't think Hull City is really clicking in their attack, and I think Southampton at home is a really difficult place to play. So for the discount, I'm going to take Davis on the vast majority of my teams. If you don't want him, I would look at Michael Vorm for Tottenham. He played really well last week against Burnley. Unfortunately for the Spurs, they couldn't score. And now he draws Villa, who's coming off Benteke's hat trick. Villa's dangerous. So Vorm's a bit of a risk, probably not one I would take when Davis is just a little bit more expensive, but not totally unreasonable. And you can probably be a little bit contrarian with him, and you're not going to find many other managers on Vorm. But my differential is a player that last week I thought was a great play, Myhill. His value is now down to $4.8 million. I can't imagine too many people will want to play him after his performance against QPR. There were a couple goals that, world-class keepers weren't stopping, but giving up 4 against QPR is pretty dreadful. So going back to the well with him, this time against Leicester. Leicester was really exciting last week in what was a relegation match for them. They basically looked at that match as a must-win. They may look at this match as the same, which could create a lot of save chances for Myhill. Maybe he'll actually stop them this time. We'll see what happens. I like Myhill as a differential. Again, I'll use Davis on my cash games, probably most of my qualifier teams, but I would look at Myhill. I think that he has a decent chance of a clean sheet or 1 goal allowed and a number of saves. So, at $4.8 million, hopefully he won't implode like he did last week. My defenders are, the first place to look is going to be Southampton. As I mentioned, I love Davis. You've got Bertrand, you've got Klein, you've got Font. All are really strong plays. I'm looking at Alberto Moreno for Liverpool. He doesn't really play much in defense, and they should have a good share of the ball against Newcastle, allowing him to get forward, see what he can do with that. Bellerin with Arsenal is a good play. Arsenal has a good chance at a clean sheet. Bellerin opened the scoring last week against Liverpool with a beautiful goal. I think he loves getting forward. He certainly doesn't really love playing defense, but they've got good cover for him back there. My differential on defense this week is Ben Davies from Tottenham. Looks like Kyle Walker is not going to be able to go as of right now. Davis likes to get forward, send some crosses in. Maybe he can put one on Kane. I think they'll have the majority of the ball against Villa. So I think Davis could be a decent option. He's not particularly expensive. Talking about expensive midfielder, we've got Eden Hazard. Hazard had a massive week last week, despite a $19 million pound price tag. Hazard is always going to be in play. Now he's up over 21 million, but now he has an away match at QPR. So I think you've got to look at Hazard. If you can fit him in with Costa out, he tends to take a lot more of the attacking burden on his shoulders, and when he does that, he's just such a creative player. He draws a lot of fouls. His assists, his goals. It's just he's a total package. So against one of the worst defenses in the Premier League, it's hard to get away from Hazard if you can afford him, which that's the real challenge here, not whether or not you should play him. In the 12 million range, I like Sterling against Newcastle, and I like Mane from Southampton. He didn't start last week. I expect he's going to start this week. It's a little bit cluttered in the Southampton midfield, which makes playing any of these guys complicated. But Djuric is going to be out, and the other midfielders didn't really play very well. So I think that opens the door for Mane. He's definitely their most dangerous attacking midfielder, and I think against Hull City they're going to have their opportunities, and I expect him to do well. One thing I noted over the past 6 game weeks, despite some scattered pitch time for Mane, he does lead the Premier League among midfielders with 19 fouls drawn in the past 6 matches, which is pretty solid. So that gives you a few points. His minutes give you a few points. He's got a good base. Next, I've got Jason Punchin for Palace. They're away at Sunderland. Punchin takes most of their set pieces. He sends in a lot of crosses, which Sunderland is prone to allowing. They conceded, I think, the second most crosses over the past 6 game weeks. Punchin should be active. I really think he could be a strong play, and his value is just not caught up with his skill level now that he's playing under Pardew. He's certainly outperforming that on a regular basis. So at 7.6 million. I'll find Punchin on most of my teams. My differential is Dusan Tadic. If he plays, and even when he plays, he doesn't get a full complement of minutes. He won't play 90. But what I did see that I thought was interesting was Hull City allows attacks down on their left side. So down the right for Southampton, which is where Tadic would play if he were to draw the start. I think he can create some chances out there. He's not particularly expensive. This is purely a differential play. I don't think you can really justify playing him with all that risk if you're playing the early match as well. If you don't know that he's starting, by no means should you really play him outside of a 50 to 100 team league. But Tadic could be interesting if he draws a start. He might he might get some opportunities. Plus, he also has been taking penalties for Southampton, which really raises his value. At forward, the two expensive forwards are Harry and Olivier Giroud, both in great matchups. Giroud's away from home at Burnley. Burnley's been very tough at Turf Moor, but they give up some chances in the middle, and that's where Giroud is going to be. And I can't imagine Arsenal has too much trouble creating chances here. They're just in too good a form to succumb to Burnley, despite their form at Turf Moor. Burnley's still Burnley, and Arsenal is probably the best team in the league the way they're playing, which is maybe not going out on a ledge with 7 straight wins, looking for their 8th, but Arsenal looks fantastic. Kane was pretty awful at Turf Moor. They just couldn't service him, and he wasn't able to do much on his own. But that was last week, and this week his value came down a notch, and he's got Villa at White Hart Lane, where he has excelled all season. I think Kane's a great play. If you want Hazard, I wouldn't blame you. It's going to be tough to fit Kane in, but if you don't go with Hazard, I think Kane's a really solid option. One guy that I was planning on talking about when I first started doing my research this week was Christian Benteke. He had gotten fairly hot, and then on Tuesday he went and got a hat trick against QPR, and he's not going to be a sleeper pick anymore this week. He's going to be pretty popular, and his value is fair. He's at 10.3 million. But now that he's going to be popular, now that people are going to look at that hat trick and expect the form, even though the Spurs have some problems in their defense, you can look at Loic Remy at 10.5 million at QPR, and you look at Daniel Sturridge at 10.8 million against Newcastle. I think those are better options. I really do. Despite the form with Benteke, you're not getting any of those goals from the hat trick. So we're starting from scratch here. I think Remy, being the lone striker for Chelsea, assuming he's going to start, I think that's, that seems to be what we're hearing. And then Sturridge has been a little bit slower lately, but Liverpool has been struggling as well. So it's not just Sturridge, and Newcastle is just a disaster at the back. So I think Sturridge is going to be just fine this week. One other player I'm looking at, if you need to save some budget, Glenn Murray for Palace. I think he could end up being fairly popular. He's really hot right now. He's been scoring some goals for Palace. They go away to Sunderland. That could be an up and down match. I think Murray, assuming he draws the start, and I can't see why he wouldn't, at just 6.7 million, he could get a goal. He could get 2 goals. He's a really solid play and saves you some budget to get some of these other players in there. And last, I am going with my differential Graziano Pella. I can't tell you how many times I've mentioned Pella in this, and I apologize for that. I don't think he's ever really paid off to the degree that I need him to. He hasn't hurt me too badly because he's just so inexpensive now that he doesn't need to do a whole lot. He, notched against England in international play. We know he's capable of scoring goals. We know Southampton's capable of scoring goals. They just haven't really been doing it. So it's risky. I'm not saying that to take him in your cash games or in any, small fields, but if you're in, a 10, 20, 100-man league where you've got to beat a number of other teams, I don't think too many other managers are going to be clamoring to take Pella. I just don't. Despite his 6.2 million pound price tag, Pella's not going to be very popular, and he can still score. I think I saw bookie odds have him at about 17 to 10 to notch. That's reasonable at 6.2 million. He can get you 6 points without scoring a goal. He's not really prone to too many yellow cards. He'll foul occasionally on some balls in the air, but I think Pella's okay. I could definitely see using him if I needed the budget. I think Murray's probably a safer option, but he's safer off of goals he scored recently. I don't know if he's necessarily safer overall. He's actually less likely to score according to bookmakers. So that's it for me. I wish you the best of luck in Gameweek 32. I think this will be another fun one. Some interesting choices to be made for sure. There's going to be a lot of Kelvin Davis and Southampton players for a team that has really had difficulty scoring. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Can't wait to get on Mondogoal, try to get a couple more qualifier seats, and make sure that I'm having a good time in the last match week in the 30K qualifier. I hope to see you there. Best of luck. And this is Fantasy Football Backers, Devo 1099, signing off.